Remember, folks, Prestige 4 doesn't equal good player, and Prestige 1 doesn't equal bad player. Age is no guarantee of efficiency, and youth is no guarantee of innovation. All right, pretty interesting perspective here. Some wise words from 007 and somebody else. All right, so Prestige 4 doesn't equal good player. I think this is honestly, it's not as a hot take as you think it is. Prestige 4, in my mind, just means you have more utility than the average player. Regardless of how good you are, if you're Prestige 4, you do have more tools at your disposal. So, ultimately, I don't really think the skill level of the player, honestly. I think as long as you are able to protect yourself, you're able to take out extremists and everything like that seriously is in my opinion, the first wall, essentially, is to confidently be able to take out a Lictor or a Ravener, Zoanthrope or a Terminator, that sort of situation. Pretty much any extremist that spawns on the table, you should be comfortable with fighting 1v1. Not a lot of Prestige 1 low-level players can say that they have the tools necessary to do that. Some classes do, to be honest. You can get a pretty good build for tactical going pretty early because you have, early access to battle focus. Same goes for sniper. Essentially, sniper can get purification really early, so that can help them survive. Again, I'm starting to believe that utility in this game is much stronger than we thought originally. Because, yeah, when it comes to jumping into absolute or hard stratagems, mainly when it comes to a player being under-leveled, I'm concerned with their utility, not with their skill level. I have seen players who are lower levels in higher difficulties recently that have been pretty okay to play with. Yeah, we managed to get some victories. They definitely have died, but we've managed to get the job done. I think we may have been seeing some better lower level players, considering that we are getting close to a patch. There's a lot of players who already got all of their rewards and everything, so they're not even playing. I think some of the lower level players we see right now are newer players who are essentially getting accustomed to, the pacing of the battle and everything, so they're getting just naturally better at the game. But still, no matter how good you are, eventually you will need Invigorating Icon. Eventually you do need Precision Strike for the Assault class. There are certain perks, there are certain utility that if you aren't a high enough level, you are just not going to get. PSA, please, I am begging all of my battle brothers, please stop joining Absolute and Hard Stratagems when you're level 1. Even if you're Prestige 4, level 1, do not join an Absolute Op. I can definitely agree with that 100%. At the very least have a team perk. Prestige 4, so this is the one situation that is kind of puzzling sometimes. Depending on the class, if they're Prestige 4, let's say level 10 or level 11, they might be fine. And I'm mainly thinking about Tactical, to be honest. Tactical can jump into an Absolute Op with Battle Focus and Secure Stockpile, and to be completely honest, I'm not hating that addition to the team. Any sort of tactical, even if the tactical is dead, we will have Secure Stockpile, and I am definitely happy about that. Honestly though, to basically reference the meme we just saw, I have seen players in Absolute, level Prestige 4, fully leveled, all of that, run team perks that just aren't really good in Absolute. And that sometimes can be just as detrimental as being low level, sometimes. Not all the time. In fact, just having a team perk is still probably better than playing with a level 1 player without a team perk, to be completely honest. But, yeah, dude, we seriously need to balance team perks a little bit better in this game. I definitely want to talk about that soon, but I kind of want to see what the devs do with balancing for the next patch to see if they change anything as far as balance is concerned. Because I'm not too sure what the devs... Well, I'm not too sure what the devs' priorities are. Because, yeah, they mentioned that contested health rework a while ago, and then we haven't heard anything about it, so not too sure if the devs are even concerned with balancing at this point. You are not good enough, plain and simple. If you were, you'd be doing it solo. I think I'd honestly have a bot. Okay, this guy's mad. I think I'd honestly have a bot than a level 1 battle brother taking up space. Please stop. Well, I will admit, yeah, bots are great for resurrections, but they're not great at taking out enemies, but they are pretty tanky. They are pretty tanky. But yeah, we have been seeing posts like this pop up recently. This is a recent post within the past couple days. Definitely wanted to, just reiterate this issue, because if the devs aren't doing any sort of contested health reworks, at the very least, maybe we still need to see a level locked hard mode. Put a dang level limit on hard stratagems. I just got back into the game after a long hiatus. I am literally tearing my hair out with stratagem matchmaking for hard. Alright, devs, come on. Y'all gotta save this dude's hair. You literally learned nothing from the last time you left a high difficulty without requirements to actually play it. You are literally making the same exact mistake. Dude, honestly, this is why I feel like I am so comfortable with talking about this subject a lot. First of all, there's a lot of people who are honestly kind of sick of running into lower levels in hard mode, but this is not a new thing. Yes, with siege mode, this is when the whole low level thing started, alright? So the devs have not said anything about siege mode. As far as I know, the devs have not said anything about hard mode siege matchmaking. And they really should at least say something. I don't care if it's a bad thing, but yeah, to me personally, I feel like the devs, if they know they don't have a favorable answer to something, I think as far as what we have seen in the past, I think they just don't talk about it. They just don't talk about it. The one time they did not have a favorable answer, as you know, outside of just being vague, but yeah, they contested health rework. That was the one time where it was like, oh, well, guys, if you want us to add in some contested health regeneration for melee, we're going to have to nerf ranged. That was like the one time they ever said anything that was not favorable, that they just mentioned outright. I mean, at the very least, they have mentioned things that they couldn't do, which is fine, but this is different. This is a community suggestion that has not been talked about from the devs, but has been non-stop talked about from the community. So I just really hope the devs definitely say at least something. Dude, honestly, what they do for Absolute, right? That was the only thing they level lock technically. Absolute, you have to beat Lethal to jump into Absolute. And I have to be honest, if you're lower level and you beat Lethal, just stay in Lethal for a bit, at least get a prestige perk out of Lethal, because Lethal honestly will level you up pretty quickly as far as how difficult it will be. I have seen a fair amount of posts of people jumping into hard mode siege alone, looking to get boosted essentially, and they are still struggling in that scenario. So it's like, well, honestly, I wouldn't have an issue with you playing on Lethal. Hopefully there's people playing on Lethal. That's a whole other situation. I wouldn't have an issue with somebody on Lethal if they have a prestige perk and a team perk and everything. I don't really care what level you are on Lethal. Yeah, I can carry that. Absolute's a different beast. Depending on the spawns, depending on the class. If you're trying to carry on the assault class, for example, but you get a double zoanthrope neurothrope spawn, it's going to be a little difficult to carry, right? Okay. Single digit level everywhere, dying to literally something people don't on even the easiest difficulties, not sharing anything, zero situational awareness to what executions people need. I've literally spent 80% of my time back either failing or being forced into infinite loading screens, going in and out, being match made with level 5 to 8 people. I have seen this in hard stratagems, definitely. Absolute's been kind of weird. Like, honestly, I feel like anybody who is low level in Absolute is at least a little bit, they're at least thinking about themselves a little bit. They're a little bit careful because they're thinking, man, hard stratagem's probably too difficult for me right now. I'm Prestige 2 level 9 and I'm playing Vanguard. Let's just jump into Absolute. Honestly, dude, if you have a relic like combat knife and you have a fencing combat knife, you can just get some parries on Tyranids, and then you have like a relic, I don't know, instigator, relic bolt carbine, maybe. I can see Vanguards punching up in Absolute. But again, a lot of this depends. Not to mention, you can get unmatched zeal pretty early. I really don't see what you gain from jumping into like higher difficulties, like level 13. You know what I mean? Like, brother, just get one more level, get unmatched zeal. I don't care if you go down. I got some heals. We can do this. We can do this. But with melee champion, maybe not, depending on the class. I saw this content is not that new. How many people need to stop playing the mode completely before you do the same thing you did with other high difficulty stuff? Well, that's the neat part. We just kind of muscle through it. Nobody really stopped playing stratagems. I will admit, yeah, hard stratagems have been a little bit difficult to matchmake into, but the normal stratagems, there's always people playing that. And honestly, normal stratagems also can level you up a little bit quicker, as compared to like a failed hard mode situation. But still, I would definitely suggest like lethal and to get one of your key team perks, and I think you'll be fine. Because yeah, that's even if you're fully leveled, if you jump into absolute or hard stratagems and you're using a team perk that isn't very relevant, you might as well be level 1 in some cases. The problem is just how broken stratagems are. Normal difficulty is easy for pretty much everybody. I have seen players level 25, even myself, certain normal stratagems, like for example, let's say you jump into a chaos normal stratagem with suboptimal state and surgical strike. You're definitely gonna have players struggle with that, for sure. Like if you're getting comboed off on by chaos spawn and you can't protect yourself as well, and then you also have less health, it doesn't really matter if it's just on normal. Sometimes you just put into a situation where you just die. Well, you also need to fail a parry, which surgical strike is going to help you do. Hard stratagems seem unassuming, yet it's the hardest content in the game. The problem is that for most players, you have to wait for 2 weeks to gain access to a single reward if you're not an incredibly good player. Okay, so on this subject, I just wanted to, I kind of want to sprinkle this into a couple videos because I'm not too sure if it's, you know, people are too concerned with this to make a video out of it. But yeah, when the patch comes out, guys, or actually next week, starting next week on Monday, do not do your weekly, because as far as I know, if you do your weekly on Monday, you won't have it available for Tuesday, the patch day. So yeah, weekly on Monday, just kind of let it sit there. And then, oh my gosh, is this weekly going to be, it has to be a new rotation of weekly though, right? Yeah, we have to have new conditions. So, okay, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I'm wrong because we have to have new conditions. I don't see them adding in a weekly without the new conditions. Or maybe they do. This is new. This is new. But yeah, be careful with the weekly. If you don't really need the points, just let it sit there, you know. That is incredibly frustrating. Yet the solution is simple. You don't want low-level players ruining hard stratagems. Then make it so that the daily stratagems give you enough accolades to be worth playing, so that normal players can get the new content in a reasonable time frame. And you would have specific rewards for completing hard stratagems in a similar manner to the Survivor Helm and the Deteriorated Pauldron. Wow, I never even knew I never knew the name of that pauldron. I just call it the Tyrannid Pauldron, I guess. The current system doesn't even reward good players properly. They get the same stuff as the patient, lower skilled players. I do think they have a good suggestion here as far as, yeah, just maybe buff up the normal daily, you know, accolades. I think that would be okay as well. But the devs, I feel like the devs are less likely to do that. To be honest, I feel like the devs are less likely to buff daily rewards compared to just level locking hard stratagems. I mean, it's so weird. They themselves say that it's the hardest content in the game, but then they don't explain why they let level 1 players jump in there. The only thing off the top of my head is if you're queuing up with friends, but they've also made differences between private and public matchmaking before, so I think that's mostly due to mods, though. Dude, honestly, yeah, this is such a silly situation. The devs really must be overlooking this problem. I don't care what Roman numeral you have by your name when you join. And for regular ups, I don't really care what level you are. It's more the people who join hard content and are sub level 20. I want to make sure you have access to the majority of your kit before we attempt something. If you're good enough for hard, knock out a few lethals to power level before jumping into hard content. That is the truth, right? If you're jumping into hard, and let's say you're level 7 or whatever, and you're jumping into absolute and you think you're good enough, well, unless you prove that you're good enough, unless you can go through that absolute mission without dying multiple times, which is probably what's going to happen, you do have to admit, if you're good enough to make a impact in absolute, you should be good enough to power level yourself in lethal or something. I mean, you can get through these missions pretty fast. You should be able to get through lethal faster than absolute. 100%. Like, even with a good team on absolute, if you're level 1 or something, some of those fights are definitely a bit longer than fights you will see on lethal. So effectively, if you can get like 2 lethal missions out within almost the same time frame of an absolute mission, like, okay, for example, I guess for certain absolute missions, it can definitely get to like around 30 minutes. But if you jump into like lethal obelisk, I have been able to complete absolute obelisk under 15 minutes before. So to be honest, yeah, if you're power leveling in lethal, you just jump into obelisk, jump into decapitation, you should be good, to be completely honest. Dude, yeah, the one thing that really bothers me about this conversation is the fact that they choose literally the hardest content in the game to do it when there are other avenues of leveling that honestly you'll likely have more fun in. Plus, you're still going to need some practice. You can't just power level up to Prestige 4 or level 25 and expect you to be like super good all the time. Like, you're still going to jump into Absolute and make mistakes because you still need to get some reps in. You're kind of like power leveling a bit too hard. However, in my opinion, I think Lethal should put you in a position to get better like over the course of leveling, for sure. But if you jump into like if you jump into like hard mode Siege and you're like level 5 or something and you're trying to power level from level 5 to level 25, even if you do that, at the end of the day, you're going to walk out of that situation and you're not even going to know what happened. You're not going to know what happened. You don't have the attention to detail to understand, man, all those Raveners, all those Lictors, all those Zoanthropes, I could have done this, this, and this. You know what I mean? You are simply just rolling around bots and trying to survive, at least for the most part. But yeah, we will see. We will see what the devs decide to do. I really hope the devs kind of touch on this. I think when it comes to, you know, talking about low-level players and everything like that, I really thought this conversation was going to die down, like at the beginning of the month. I thought, you know, players are likely going to level up and we should be good, but there is always new players to this game. There's always players who, you know, they leveled up their one class, they put it down a bit, and then they come back for a different class. Not every player is doing this on purpose. Sometimes players just kind of underestimate or overestimate the situation. However, I still think it's funny the devs add in a way for players to essentially put a stick in their bike and they just topple over. Like, man, I'm level 5. I need some experience. Let's jump into hard mode Siege. Surely it's not that difficult. And then you fall over with the bike, and then you say, man, why did the devs make me do this? So, yeah, I think not every level 1 player is built the same. That's fair, but they still need the utility. I think that is the one thing I wanted to hammer home in this conversation, is sometimes just having more utility in this game is a lot stronger than you think. And also, I wanted to make sure, hey guys, are we all on the same page here? Did the devs really not talk about this? And should they talk about this? Because the community will not stop talking about this. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. And thanks for watching.